He is the CMO at WGN America. Mr. Brian Dollenmayer joins us. How's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for coming on the program.
No problem.
It's been we're right here in New York right now on location at ProMax BDA. It's really been cool seeing the different keynotes and going through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's really, I think, I'm calling it a media revolution. But I think in 2018 and your history at WGN, spending 19 years at Fox as well, if I got that right.
That's correct.
So you've seen this whole game like just flip on its
It's
backside.
changed. When I first started, it was definitely the big four, and that's all there were.
Yeah.
And there were about 5 or 6 cable networks, and slowly but surely just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we are where we are now.
I asked Lee Hunt, who was on the show last time, about the cable revolution, right, in the 80s, where there's a lot of cable networks that are just kind of figuring themselves out. And it kind of feels that same way with digital. And I mean, Netflix is spending $8 billion a year, so I don't think they're quite just figuring it out. But do you agree kind of that same shift that we saw maybe in the 80s is happening now in 2018?
I surely think so. And I mean, Netflix, the way they're growing, and they've said like over 1,000 originals the next year, which is amazing.
Nuts.
But you see everyone lining up too, and they're slowly trying to catch up.
Yeah.
The other services are doing, they're all performing beyond where they were a year ago. I think, to try and predict how long it will take till we get to that, where that next flag is planted, I don't know if we can predict that, but it's coming sooner. And
I feel like people almost maybe freak out a little bit too much because it's not happening tomorrow necessarily, but we all know it's kind of coming. So it's not as if you have to shift the entire business model overnight, but it seems like as you look 3-5 years down the road that things are going to start to shift. Do you think it's going to be once the advertisers of the Fortune 500 start to shift more of their money towards digital type deals, that when the networks start to shift a little bit as well?
I think they're already shifting their money towards digital.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem, at least what I've seen for networks, is really they still don't have the number of eyeballs that they have on their digital properties they do on their linear.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So while advertisers may want to switch to digital, the networks are having a problem making up the difference in revenue. Because they can charge more for their linear feed still. How do you
navigate that? Because like you said, it's been a tried and trusted method of selling 30-second ads and that being your primary revenue source at a television network, whether it's WGN, Fox, what have you, and now trying to play in the digital space but not screw over your partners that are still invested into your linear space. How do you guys get through that?
Well, WGN America is very unique property. Because we got into the original business about 5 years ago, and before that it was everyone knew it as Chicago Superstation. Yeah. So moved away from that, became a true cable network. But it's funny, 5 years ago when I began there, it was all about the originals. Which is,
you were early adopter there, I feel like 5 years ago.
Yeah. But what's changed is just the way we look at what we call our pillar shows. 5 years ago it was like, we have originals and a bunch of this other stuff. Now it's sort of swung to, hey, guess what? We have a bunch of reruns of your favorite shows, which seems to be, kind of the Netflix model. That's how they started, was watch all the past seasons of your favorite shows. So it's now become cool again to just sit and veg and watch, in the heat of the night for 4 hours.
I know.
Blue Bloods for 5 hours.
I find myself doing that all the time, even like old Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episodes. I'll watch, 7 in a row if it's like back to back on Nickelodeon or what have you.
It's just too easy to sit there.
Yeah, but it looks like you guys have tried to kind of break into the binge watching culture because it's still a big thing that Netflix does, but linear can still do that as well.
Yeah, linear does it. You stack the episodes all day long. Yeah. People then, they know another one's coming up next as long as you navigate to them. And then hopefully during those episodes, you're able to then promote to the next day or be at the next week or your next new show that's coming up.
So I find this fascinating, how you, again, we're talking about navigating these waters, but there's YouTube TV, and you may give rights to YouTube TV or Hulu, and then you also have your linear, then you have your app, and there's so many, I guess, call to actions for the consumer, and there's a little bit of conflict of interest there, right? When there's money coming certain ways, are you technically stealing away from linear to promote a little bit of YouTube TV? Like, I feel like that's a common thing that people have to figure out.
I think as long as you own the content, you're fine to promote to any of those platforms. Our issue is we own very little of our content.
Gotcha.
So we're behind the business when it comes to developing an app. We're working on one now. Our biggest struggle will be what do we put on that app that will make a consumer, take the time to download it and everything. Yeah. Obviously, you'll be able to watch the originals on there and potentially some of the movies and shows, but we want to develop, additional content, another reason to come to the app. Perhaps some, app exclusives, originals.
Yeah, I
that are
feel
only
like
on the app.
TNT and TBS was kind of the channel you would go to watch old Friends or old Seinfeld reruns, and they've really, the last couple of years, they've really gone all in original content. It sounds like you guys are starting to, you have your original series, original films, things like that, and you can really double down on that.
Yeah, it's just a matter how do you take it to that next level.
Yeah.
We have to play catch up, that's for sure. It costs a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, we'll call some investors soon. And
Yeah.
write us a check.
For sure. So at your time back at Fox and even early on at WGN, how has the KPI changed? Because I'm sure, 10 years ago, it's like Nielsen, linear tune in, and now it's starting to not shift completely, but now I think execs are starting to ask more about the digital platforms and downloads and partnerships like that.
Well, to speak just to the linear platform, I mean, you know that now they won't release any ratings until they get the Live 3.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the ratings are there, but no one wants to report them.
Yes.
For our business, what's really important is the C3 rating, because that's what the advertiser are ultimately going to buy. So what in press, L3 looks a lot better. It's the C3 that really counts.
Yep.
When you look at the social metrics, KPI, I would say back at Fox, it was more about, and even starting at WGN America, it was like, how big is your fan base, right? So we would always, it would be, and I can't speak for the Fox, I didn't run social there.
Right.
But I know at WGN America, it was like, all right, how many millions of fans can we get? We have 10,000 followers today. We added 10,000 next week, whatever that might be. Now it's about what was the engagement on each individual post. Because we found that if people are sharing a post, doesn't mean they actually go and have to like the page, but it may drive tune-in. And ultimately, that's our business, is driving tune-in to the series.
So when Facebook changes their algorithm and it's tougher to reach those priceless people that you've spent so much time trying to cultivate and build a community around, are you all in on the paid media side of things to reach those consumers? Do you pull away a little bit because Facebook changes so quickly, or how do you?
Facebook is fun and that it's always changing, right? Well, every month, there's a new algorithm. So we're trying to always figure it out. We're always like, all right, should we do a post at 6 a.m.? Should there be another at 7? Or do we wait? Are there 3 hours in between? Should we put all the posts up at once? Like, what's the best way to go?
But it is the free billboard that you have to, or the sandbox you have to play in,
though
it is frustrating at times, right?
We love it. And we actually, a big chunk of our social media does go towards, the paid media goes on Facebook. But what we found is find a couple posts that are working well, boost them.
Yeah.
I've talked to some other people who are doing more the model of boost everything just a little bit and then see what takes off.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need a little bit of media to help something really grow. We've still gone more like, all right, here's what we believe are our 3 key creative messages, and maybe perhaps we want to put money behind all 3 of those or something like that.
So when you're on social, what are the things that you've seen? I know it's tough to see when you see that engagement, how many people actually flip their TV on and executed on that CTA. But has there been anything that you've done in your past that's been really successful in terms of a social campaign that you really think moved the needle for linear tune-in or to get the word out?
I think Underground was our most successful. As far as social campaigns, we trended #1 on Twitter every single week.
Wow.
I think the big reason behind that was the cast was incredibly active during the live tweets. They had so much fan engagement. Bellevue was also very successful, and there they not only, the actors were very active as well, but they shared so much behind the scenes and so many stories. The executive producer came on during it and would tell this scene, this girl was sick for 5 days before it. I can't believe that we were able to shoot it.
That second screen experience, awesome.
Yeah. It just, and as you're watching the show live, you could see the people interacting, and it was a great experience.
So with the cast being so important, especially with their large followings and that distribution method, from the network standpoint, have you also seen that change? Like, is it in their contracts now where the cast needs to be tweeting or involved in social to help the success of the program?
You know what? If it was written to the contracts, applause for the lawyers who did that. I think,
but they should all be cheering for the success of the program, so it makes sense, right?
Well, ultimately, the actors are as passionate about the shows as you are, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll want to support it. Where just, I think it's a little bit tricky is perhaps they're not on social media. There are still some people who don't regularly tweet, you know, and you still have to teach some of them.
The best practices,
here's what you do. Yeah. And so that's when it's a little bit harder. But for the most part, we've had great success with all our talent being willing, like, how can I help? And we love to hear that. We have a new show coming out called Carter with Jerry O'Connell.
Nice.
And he private messaged us the minute it was released, like, whatever you need,
let me know.
Let's do it. He's ready. So we have a big social plan planned for him right now.
That's awesome. So how do you approach, as these different platforms come up, where you choose to invest your time in? Because, you know, as Instagram Stories comes out, or Facebook Live, or Facebook 360, they're all the kind of the sexy things that may come out on a very fast turnaround. But is there a moment where you say, now it's time for us to start investing some dollars on X, Y, or Z?
Yeah. We always, it's very interesting because we always want to try and be the first to try something or do something. Yeah. We work with MediaStorm. They're a wonderful partner. It's our media agency, and they have a great team who will lead us with, hey, this is something new. Do you guys want to try it? And we actually, for our last campaign for 100 Code, imagine this, our network is, you know, we like to say adults 35 plus, but we're really closer to the plus range. But we advertised on Snapchat.
Wow.
Which you wouldn't expect.
No.
But we were told that Snapchat has a very dedicated TV lover, drama, so fan that you can target just them. I'm waiting for the results still. But I do know for my creative team, it challenged them in ways, and they all got very excited about it because suddenly we're doing 5 to 7 second long spots. It's a different game. Format. It was just a lot of fun to tell. We did a story campaign.
I think that's what's exciting about this industry. It is shifting. I know it could be frustrating because it moves so fast, but you're able to really dig in and really target exactly the core audience you did. Instead of putting a billboard up on Sunset Boulevard and hoping that, you know, your 35 plus are looking at it and they watch that night, you can at least go to Snap and say, get rid of all these 12-year-olds. They're not going to care about it.
Correct.
Let's really focus in on our demographic.
Correct. So you want to believe that you are targeting the fans who will watch the show, as compared to just throwing a wide net out there. And, you know, it's much better for your dollars. Yeah, you know,
your dollar goes a longer way. There's a lot of people that listen to this program and they work at TV networks, and I think there's always been a struggle with how you counterbalance the brand page, so the mothership account at WGN America versus all the show pages, because you can have one original that's more of maybe a comedy, one's drama, but the mothership is WGN. What's your philosophy on that, and what deserves their own channels and things like that?
Right. We found that shows that deserve their own channels, we actually do give all the shows their own channel. What we'll decide is whether we'll support that specific channel with paid media or not.
That makes sense.
So are the ads coming from WGN America, or are they coming from, you know, that particular show? What we've learned is it's so hard in this day and age for anyone to have any sort of recognition of what your brand or what station you're watching. So when we first launched Salem, which was our first original, it was all about Salem. We built a passionate community. But Salem ended after 3 seasons. So then it was, well, how do you bring them back to WGN America and make them fans of the network, which is our ultimate goal, is to keep them with the network for years and years to come.
Right.
So we've switched, you know, strategy a little bit, and now it's more about the brand of WGN America. And I think I'm seeing more networks do that as well. And all of our hashtags, WGNA, WGN America is in the hashtag for whatever the show is. So we'll still do individual pages for all the shows, but most of the paid media will come from the brand.
You make an interesting point, because I remember, like, growing up, must-see TV, NBC, you have Seinfeld and Friends and ER, and it was they're a huge marketing campaign. You kind of knew, like, NBC's putting out good content. I'm a fan of NBC. To your point, I was a huge Breaking Bad guy, huge Mad Men guy. I watched AMC constantly, but I don't think I've watched it since.
Right.
So to the point of, you have these loyal followers of the show, but not necessarily like, I love WGN, but I love this show, and how to counterbalance that.
Yeah. And the problem with some of our shows is they are very targeted towards specific audiences. So while we had a witch show, that genre, then we had a show about, you know, the making of the bomb. Then we had a show about motorcycle riders, and it's just
a lot of different demos.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you basically bring all those people and say, hey, now we want you to watch Murder, She Wrote?
How do you do that? Because I mean, that's a tough thing to navigate. Even like when you're dropping promos inside or those bumpers inside Murder She Wrote to watch the Witch Show, it must be interesting.
Right. Well, I'll just say that you have to have a lot of fun with the creative, and you have to embrace whatever. I've seen a lot of great spots here that IFC is great at, is taking old shows and making them feel relevant for today. I'll applaud them for that.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll try to do with our movies. We had E.T., from, what was it, 1981 or 1982. And it was basically, the promo was inspired by Stranger Things that felt like it was inspired by E.T. So it's like it had come full circle. It was a lot of fun.
I like that.
And it made it feel like, relevant.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately our goal. And today's audience, it had, for the audience who grew up with it, they have a love for it. And then, the younger generation, hopefully they're like, some sort of trigger, like, oh, that looks like Stranger Things. I'll watch it.
I'll take a look at it. Nostalgia. What do you think about all these conglomerates starting to merge? It seems like Netflix and the OTTs have kind of forced this, but now Time Warner partnering with AT&T, which gives them that data subset that they desperately need. AT&T needs original content. Do you think ultimately that's a smart move and will propel them into the next 20, 30 years?
There's many ways to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could answer that question as someone in the business. I could answer it as just a lover
give it
of
to
TV.
me both. Yeah. Brian from WGN, Brian the consumer. Yeah.
Well, I'll just say from a business model, right? I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to make money.
Yep.
And so that's what they're doing. It's a business. They're trying to stay profitable.
Yeah.
A lot of the networks aren't as profitable as they once were, and the mothership knows that. And like, what do we need to do to, make sure that we're still in business 10 years from now?
Right.
You don't want to just, close your eyes and say, well, we'll just go down with the sinking ship because this is the way it is.
Yeah.
As a lover of TV, I think watching shows, if you didn't read the headlines, you wouldn't have any idea that they're merging.
Yeah.
Your favorite shows are still on. It's not like they're taking them off your cable dial or anything like that. But I think at some point maybe...
and now like 8 companies own every TV channel essentially. Like it's
but they still feel like they're different brands.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
I just don't want to get back to a place where, if Disney and Fox goes through, that everything feels the same on ABC and Fox. I mean, because Fox once had that edgy brand.
That's what I hope. Like with FX doesn't really fit under the Disney Mickey Mouse like family, but I hope they just let FX do their thing, stay edgy, stay doing your thing, and we'll just
everyone
make the
at
money.
FX hopes that same thing.
I bet.
I've talked to many.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
It. Yeah,
but don't change the method if it's worked at least for this long.
I don't think they will because FX has been incredibly successful. So why mess with a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
You could see if they were struggling, then they might try something different. But.
So on the sports side, ESPN in the last 5 years went from 100 million homes to 87 million homes, and when you're making $6 a subscriber, it's a lot of money.
Right.
So there's been layoffs there, but they've also made some changes to SportsCenter. They've invested in ESPN Plus, like that app that can host all their live sports. Bleacher Report's done something as well with Turner Sports. Is that what we're going to, where the networks can, I guess, more control the distribution on the apps and then maybe be able to monetize on that rather than hoping Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat kind of write their destiny? Yeah,
you could see that. And I think ESPN has been incredibly successful with their app. I know, at least from personal experience, I'm driving home and I never missed any of the NBA playoffs because I was watching it on their app.
Yep.
It's very interesting. You could see ESPN's interesting. I mean, their viewership has gone down too, and it's a product of our times. Just because we're growing up, it was like you had to see. That was the only way to see the highlights.
I say Vine ruined SportsCenter because I had ESPN News on in high school and college constantly, and once Vine came out, there was publishers that would post, within seconds. I'm not sure if you know about House of Highlights, but they do that now on Instagram. But that's how everybody gets their highlights now. Just scroll for a little bit. Cool, I'm good. I know what LeBron did. I know what, Russell Westbrook did.
So I don't know the business behind of it, but how is it that boxing, right? You can never, if there's a title fight, that you cannot go see the highlights, right?
Yeah, people would watch the pay-per-views on Periscope. Like someone would film their pay-per-view in their living room, and there'd be I mean, hundreds of thousands of people watching that stream, and boxing has found a way to like go in there and shut them all down and cease and desist Periscope and things like that. So.
But you wonder with the NFL and NBA, at some point will they say we're going to go more that model? And, you know, you won't be able to see highlights until...
And I'm fascinated with what the NBA has done. Their motto is share everything. I don't care if Brian and David, you can post highlights. We're all about the long-term game. And I think that's why they've made it global is you know about LeBron and Russell Westbrook and all these James Harden and the Beard and all these different guys, where the NFL and MLB are close to the vest. And I think they don't have that global range and those stars.
We've seen NBA with the youth. It's getting more popular. That's for sure. But it doesn't help the networks, I think, ultimately.
Well, what was interesting, though, the finals, I think, were up this year, which with all the cable subscribers that have, like you said, have cut the cord, that every time I see something go up in this industry, I'm like, that's incredible. I mean, Roseanne, which ended terribly, but that was super interesting, too. It's like I think everybody thinks the ceiling is falling, but linear is still a $80 billion industry, and it's still a major. Everybody knows, like, if you're on TV, you made it. So it's still a major player.
Right. Well, there's a reason that YouTube and Hulu and Netflix are advertising on linear.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Still a lot of folks there.
Yeah, they are. And there's also a great amount of folks. I think I read a study where it's still 73% or some in that range. People have both linear and, you know, cut the cord, so to speak, you know, or watching over the top. So I know I do both. You know, I still do traditional, and then if I missed a show or something, I'll go stream it.
So when it comes to DVR, and I know on the network side, you talked about the L3 and all those different things. Obviously, we all know people fast forward through commercials, and that becomes a major ad revenue. Have you seen more at the network through your years integrating sponsors more into the actual original shows in a way that is more organic, or how have you guys battled the know that people are going to fast forward if they're watching after live?
Yeah, for us, the biggest thing we've concentrated on is just the ad breaks and their length, and experimented with, all right, how do we keep them through this 60-second break?
Yep.
Are they going to stay for a 6.5-minute break? Probably not, right? Yep. And that's just, they're just going to blow through that. TNT did something I thought was outstanding this year for the alienness. They had a lower third during the commercials where it said, you know, we'll return in 59 seconds, 58 seconds.
I love that.
And, you know, I thought that was great. It was great for the consumer. They would see, hey, I'll just stick here, no reason to flip around.
I think the World Series did that, too. They did a picture-in-picture where they had the ad, but they had, like, behind the scenes what was going on in the stadium at the same time. I think that's a way to keep it going, for sure.
When I was at Fox, American Idol, we did that where it was live. It stayed live for a little while, like
great.
30 seconds. And, you know, it ran a commercial. And I think that's, you know, advertisers are embracing that more because they're like, we want people to see our ads and not skip them.
They're selfish in a way. They want the whole screen, like,
well, no,
yell
but I
at
think,
me.
you know, I mean, let's be honest, ESPN News, CNN, they have the ticker going the entire time. So I think they're like, however we hold that audience, you know, let's do that.
That's a good point.
So I think we're looking at all those sorts of creative ways to hold the audience.
Have you guys experimented at WGN with influencers at all to try to tap into a certain demographic prior to a show? And if so, what's your thoughts on the influencer industry?
Well, I don't want to say anything negative about the industry because I know that we're talking about social.
There's a lot of bots, though. I think there, as far as what's my money doing for me, it's still kind of a gray area, which is frustrating for some buyers.
I know that, you know, depending on the influencers, some. I think the toughest thing is making it feel organic,
100%,
right?
I agree.
And I think the rules have changed where they have to say sponsored or paid now. So I think that changed it a little bit.
The Kardashian rule. No.
Yeah. So, you know, we've done some. We did a great influencer campaign for Underground. We had some stars behind it. Shaq was part of it. Nice. Richard Sherman from the Seahawks.
Okay.
They were great, and people loved the campaign. But then we had, and I'm forgetting her name, it was another actress who just was a big fan of the show. You could see hers was real. You know, it wasn't sponsored, and it like quadrupled, you know, the number of people who shared it. It just blew it through the roof. That's compared to the others.
That's kind of the rule of thumb for me anyway. Is like if we're going to do an influencer campaign, especially like micro-influencers, like just don't even give direction. Just tell your audience about this in the most organic, genuine way you can, because that audience is going to know if you're selling at them or you're like telling them or posting a graphic that you never would in the first place.
Yeah.
Any common myths in this industry that you just don't feel are true that people consistently bring up?
Common myths. Well, I mean, speaking of social, I'm just still waiting for someone to be able to prove that, you know, if you are number one on Twitter, that you're going to be number one in in the ratings.
Yeah.
And that's still, I've had many conversations with people where at Fox we had the X Factor and we
Nielsen
touted
social
it.
ratings and
We touted it. It was the number one social show, yet it was gone in
Interesting.
a couple years.
Yeah.
Just the people didn't watch. They loved to talk about it, and the fans were passionate about it. We just couldn't get enough people to actually watch it. So that's not really a myth, just more like a mystery.
Yeah.
More than anything else. No, I mean, it's a crazy business we're in. Always changing. We have to be ready to adapt.
It feels like
right?
you're into it though. It's like, hey, geek out over it. Let's figure this thing out.
No, I love
Yeah.
it. I love diving in, and my team will bring me new ideas. We always are just looking for, like I said, to be the first to do something. And if we're not the first, then let's do it better than the last guy did it.
And it sounds like just constantly knowing that you're going to have to constantly A/B test and kind of figure stuff out as they come along.
Yeah, it's amazing when you do. We'll change one word in the copy, and this one took off 70% more. Like, I guess people don't like the word that we capitalized tonight. Or something like that. It's crazy.
So funny. Who's doing it right now, in your opinion? I mean, we talk about Netflix and they're the elephant in the room, but when it comes to original content and kind of understanding the space we're in and creating content for now into the future, is there anybody out in space that you're looking at or you appreciate?
Well, FX and what they did, and I saw it here at the conference with the cult campaign.
Yeah.
It was incredibly amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the show, but I was a huge fan of that
campaign. Well, they're a wide range of content. To talk about, just because you're a fan of FX doesn't mean you're a fan of all the shows. Like, It's Always Sunny, and the different shows they have, like Atlanta, and there's a lot of different subsets and demographics that would like those different shows.
Yeah, well, what I mean is, I've watched one season of AHS, and that was the first one. Liked it, but I didn't feel like I needed to go back.
Yep.
But their campaigns are always the best campaign. I look forward to when they release that key art at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And this one, they just took it to a new level, I think, with their social. I got caught up, and I joined the cult more as a marketer, saying, all right, what are they doing here with this? But it was a great campaign.
You walk in the FX office too, and it's like tinted blue, and they had like Atlanta posters. Like, even walking into their office, it's like a very well branded. So I totally agree. So on that note, what's the best thing about this industry? Because we just talked about how you enjoy it and you like kind of figuring this thing out as we go. So what's the best thing and what you love the most about this industry?
I get inspired every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing what I love. It's a creative field. Whether it's working on a trailer or a piece of key art, or maybe just being creative with, like I said, like, how can we change this ad break? You got to be creative, especially in cable, a situation we're in where we're basically just linear.
Yep.
Feeling like we'll have small victories. We ran Jurassic Park, the original trilogy last weekend. We saw our biggest numbers on a weekend in a really long time.
Wow.
And, it was obviously timed to the new movie coming out. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest thing about it is this is fun every day. I hope you love going to work.
Of course.
I do.
Me too. Yeah.
So
with the Jurassic Park example, I think it's interesting. Can you drop in those original series promos in between that, kind of knowing that it may spike? And do you see that correlate to future shows once that happens? Meaning, can you use the rerun content to prop up your original content? Does that work?
Yeah, we do. And what we'll do sometimes, if we know we have a special event like that, we may carve out and call it a 100 code weekend, and maybe we'll get exclusive content. So we use our air. It's great being a small network because
you can
the
shift
approval,
a little
the
faster.
approval
I love
process, it's really easy.
Yeah.
It's, you just turn around and you can see the whole building, just in plain sight. And like, all right, yeah, you're good. You yell down the hall, all right, let's do it.
Well,
and you put it on the air.
With my question about what's the best thing about the industry, I was going to ask you the worst thing, and most people would say probably the approval process, but you don't have that. But with every best, there's probably a worst. What's a frustrating thing or something you struggle with?
I think the most frustrating thing is, being in the creative field, you may believe you produce your greatest work ever,
but there's nothing you can do.
No one shows up.
Yeah.
And then I think another hard thing is when you do have success with a show and you've built like a passionate base. We saw it with the show Outsiders.
Yeah.
Great fans.
Yeah.
They loved it. It was a great series. Loved working with the EPs. Ultimately, it didn't get renewed for a business reason. That sucks.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to make the show. We just couldn't afford it.
Yep.
And but the fans don't understand that. They're just like,
Or is it that?
Yeah, because they see, well, you're still making other shows. I'm like, well, they don't cost as much as the others, but they just want their show back.
Always trying to find little nuggets that people can take away from this. Is there any tool that you use internally, whether it be on social or to kind of make decisions on the linear side that you couldn't live without, or that really help you on a day-to-day basis?
Any tools? I think the tool that we use the most is our gut.
Interesting.
And just being, going with your gut and not being afraid to ask someone else for their opinion. As creatives, I think too many people are like, don't want to show it to you till the end.
This is my lane, get away, yeah.
For me, it's like, once I have an idea of where the creative's going, I want to share it with a lot of people and just get their take on it. Like, is this working for you? Because what I don't want to do is spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 months working on a campaign and then finally show it to someone, they're like,
that's awful.
What are you doing?
That makes sense. Well, hopefully we have this conversation like this time 12 months from now, so I'll ask you to try to predict the future a little bit, which I know is tough.
All right.
But 12 months from today, you and I sit down here. What are we talking about? Obviously, the conglomerates and these mergers are going to be a big part of the discussion, but what do you think is the big thing on all of our minds 12 months from today?
I think it will be the fact that WGN America launched Pure to record ratings.
All right, there you go. Nice
season 1 coming out in January. We're shooting season 2 right now in Halifax.
Everybody should be talking about it.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's a great show. I am going to plug it. It's basically Breaking Bad meets Witness.
Ooh.
So
you got me sold.
Yeah, Mennonite Mob. It's really good.
What's your favorite TV show of all time?
Well, Lost, without a doubt. Lost is drama, comedy is Seinfeld. I've actually, thank you Hulu for keeping my morning commute, keeping me sane.
Are you
along
watching
the way.
TV on the road? This is
allegedly.
This is not safe. But
PCH
LA, you go a mile, 1 mile an hour, so you're okay.
Go. But I'm up to season 9. Episode 5. I've just gone through the whole catalog.
You're watching the NBA Finals on the way home, and on the way in, you're watching.
Yeah, watching little Seinfeld.
So. Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know you're a busy guy. Thank
you.
All right, thanks,
It's
Brian.
fun.